Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. On this channel, we spend our time looking at fantasy of all sorts, from books to movies to video games, and applying the characters within into the tabletop games Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Today, though, we're going to be looking at a core mechanic of D&D itself, specifically one of the most common races in the whole game, the Halfling. The Halfling is based on the Hobbits from the Lord of the Rings series, but because the word Hobbit was copyrighted, we call them Halflings instead in D&D, but they are effectively the same creatures. Short, very, very bright and light-hearted, and not usually prone to adventuring, but when they do, they bring an interesting skill set with them. Let's have a look at the mechanics to see how they pan out. Now, halflings, as a standard rule, get a +2 to their dexterity. Dexterity is one of the most useful skills in the whole game. It can be used by fighters, rogues, and basically anyone who wears light armor or uses ranged or finesse weapons, which is a lot of people. That's a 10 out of 10 as your top ability score increase. Their size is small. This actually limits them to some of the weapons and armor that they can wear, and to some of the physical capabilities that they can have. The medium creature is the most common type of creature in the game, and halflings actually stand below that. This small doesn't do them many favors, so 8 out of 10 for their size. And then there's their speed. Their speed is 25 feet, which is 5 feet shorter than the standard 30, or I should say 5 feet slower than the standard 30. Again, it's not the biggest handicap in the world, but it is a handicap, one which they can make up for in other ways, but the base race gets an 8 out of 10 for their speed. Then comes one of their best features, the lucky feature. Now, this is not the same as the lucky feat, which is a different thing entirely. That gives you luck points. This is simply an immunity to crit fails. If you roll a 1, a nat 1, on an ability, attack, or saving throw, you can re-roll it. So it's really hard for halflings to just fail so awfully. This is something every race switches they had. Nobody likes to crit fail, and halflings just have this strange luck that stops them from doing it. 10 out of 10. Easy. They also have the brave feature. They have advantage against the fear effect, and the fear effect is actually reasonably common. It comes up often, especially in late game, or against big boss monsters that have this natural fear auras. It is pretty specific, and it is only advantage, not immunity. I still give it an 8 out of 10 as an awesome power to have. Then there's the Halfling Nimbleness power. This means they can move through spaces that are occupied by medium creatures. Normally, a medium creature would have to push their way through another medium creature's space, using a strength or a dexterity check. But halflings can just do that. They can just move through other creatures. I mean, they can't end their turn in those spaces, but they can move around them with ease. This nimbleness gives them a lot of versatility on the battlefield. 8 out of 10. And then finally, they get 2 languages, Common and Halfling, which is pretty normal for races of D&D. And, yeah, 9 out of 10. Having 2 languages is pretty nice. Then there are 2 sub-races that go along with the halflings, the Lightfoot and the Stout. The Lightfoot gets a +1 to their charisma as their secondary stat. Charisma is a really, really good one to have. 8 out of 10. Also, they have the naturally stealthy ability. Just like they can nimbly move around medium creatures, they can also attempt to hide when they're behind medium or bigger creatures. Meaning that effectively, if there are lots of bodies on the battlefield, halflings can hide pretty much all the time. Just slipping behind their allies or behind anybody, really, and being really, really hard to spot and pin down. This is helpful. I mean, hiding isn't something you do all the time, but when you do, it's nice to have more options. So 8 out of 10 for naturally stealthy. This means that the Lightfoot Halfling scores a 9 out of 10 when you crunch all the numbers together. Really, really good. The Stout Halfling, on the other hand, gets a +1 to their Constitution. This is actually really, really helpful because Constitution, everyone wants to have good health. It doesn't matter what your class is or your race is. Having more health is good. And I give it a 7 out of 10. It's not the most versatile feature. It pretty much does the one thing, but it's still nice. Also, they have the Stout Resilience power. Similar to the dwarves, they have advantage against poison and resistance to poison damage. Resistance to damage is good. Advantage against a poison condition, also good. And this is permanent. It just stays with you. That's a 9 out of 10. And when you crunch the Stout numbers together, they're mostly the same as the Lightfoot, with a couple exceptions, and they get a 9 out of 10 as well. Halflings are really, really cool. They lack a little bit in their size and speed, but they well make up for it for their courage, their luckiness, as well as their stat boosts. Dexterity, charisma, and con, really, really good. These are stat boosts that will serve you well. And I give the Halfling 2 thumbs up because they are well worth playing. Knowing that a Halfling was the star character of the most famous fantasy story out there, The Lord of the Rings, and that they stood out. They were not expected to be able to perform alongside the men and the elves, but they did. And they actually surpassed every expectation. And that's exactly what you can expect from a Halfling in D&D. They will surpass the expectations of those who look down on them. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below, and keep your eyes out for more race reviews coming soon. Have a good one, my friends.